Okay. Okay, so we're given the graph of y equals g of x, and in this particular problem, we're asked for the range of g of x. So what is the lowest output that we'll get, all the way up to the highest output that we'll get, and we have to use interval notation. Okay, so the first thing I look at is how far, like if I'm looking like what I see visually on this graph here, what's the lowest point of this graph? Okay, that's going to tell me the bottom end of our interval notation. And if you look right here, all right, that's the lowest point on this graph. Okay, it doesn't go any lower than this, so I know that given the, we selected our domain in the previous problem. So no matter what value I pick out of my domain, the lowest value that I'll get is going to be -1. Okay. Oh, let me change this to, it's actually, we get a -1, so we want to include that value. So I need to use a square bracket instead of a parentheses. That means I'm including -1. So you see here, we do have this value here of -1 as our output. Then what's the highest point? Okay, so if you look, if you see here, that value is 5, all right? But is there any point on the graph that goes higher than this? Yeah. And if you look our graph, like I said, it should continue. Normally, because there's only so much room on the screen here or on this particular grid, if the graph continues, you see an arrow, but this graph does continue. So here at this point, you see that it's what, let's say this is 7, but you keep picking values out of your domain, like -7, -8. Now you keep picking further and further to -infinity. The output will increase and approach positive infinity. Okay? So there should be no gaps or anything like that, and that's how we denote when like an interval notation. So the lowest value that we'll get for our range is -1, and the highest value we can get all the way up to positive infinity.